never told you anything about Laken Riley's murder.
No,
is that
ma'am.
correct?
No, ma'am.
He said to you, if you tell them, like, who was he referring to?
The police officers who just walked off, I'm guessing.
So if you tell them what? Because he didn't tell you what. He just says, if you tell them, I will tell them that you killed her and I will kill you. That's what he said.
Ma'am, I can't speculate on what his intentions were or what he was talking about. I'm just relaying the message of what he said.
And prior to that, before he says this to you through Translate app,
yes, ma'am,
you're sitting there kicking it with him, I guess, and talking about a murder. And what I heard you say was, Diego asked you what was happening, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Because he didn't know what was happening, right?
No, ma'am.
And that's because your police or your apartment complex was literally being swarmed by an army of police officers, right?
It wasn't like the 23rd, but it was a lot there. Yes,
lots of police officers.
Yes, ma'am.
And you and he are just outside of your apartments, right?
I sit outside my apartments at nighttime. I sit outside my residence on a daily basis. He lives next door to me.
And so y'all are sitting out there while all these police are around.
Yes.
And this whole conversation begins with him asking you what is going on, right?
Yeah.
And you tell him what?
And I told him that there had somebody had passed away behind our apartments. And I said, now I know like that you go through that path to go to work in the mornings. And I said, if you know anything, or just like if you've heard anything out of the ordinary, please say something.
And that's and these preceding conversations that you had, where Diego asked you what's up, and you tell him what happened. How are y'all doing that communication?
Well, we were like speaking in the broken, like we can understand like that. I don't know how to explain it. Like I could speak a little bit of Spanish, you can speak a little bit of English, ma'am, and somehow we get it.
Your impression is that you got it, right?
My impression is that I can't make an impression right now because I can't speculate on that.
So your birthday was that day, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And what did you do for your birthday?
I was just hung out of the house. In fact, there was a lot going on that day, and I was upstairs with all the rest of the neighbors wondering what was going on.
And did you celebrate for your birthday?
Yes, I did.
And how'd you do that?
I drank alcohol.
Okay. Who'd you drink with?
Myself.
And any other people?
No.
And you eventually end up talking to the GBI about what you just told us, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Next day, correct? Yes?
Yes.
And when you talked to the GBI the next day, were you under the influence of alcohol?
Yes. And
in fact, Ms. Slayton, you've had a sexual relationship with Diego Ibarra, is that correct?
I plead the fifth.
Choose from thousands of realistic voices to use in your content.
Of February 2024, you actually told them at some point you got mad at Diego because you felt that he was having sex with another woman, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You remember saying that to them?
Yes.
And that you had actually purchased a phone for Diego, right?
Correct.
And that you turned it off because you found out he was having a relationship with another woman, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Not a relationship.
Okay, a what then?
Please excuse me. I've seen a video on the phone. He was in a club and somebody was twerking on him. Okay. So I don't believe that. I purchased the phone for him to find employment, not to make videos like that.
Okay. Well, you actually used a word to the GBI that you found out or you thought he was blanking somebody else,
yes,
correct?
Probably so, yes, ma'am.
And that word blank that I said, and excuse my language for the court, begin with an F, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And just because we're all adults here and I need to say it, you thought he was fucking somebody else, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And fucking is your word, not my word, right?
Right.
All right. And you told that to the GBI?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And I'm going to approach the witness with what I have marked as State's Exhibit 328. Do you recognize State's 328? Can you recognize her name on that document?
Judge, we're willing, what I believe has been in is a certified copy of the court document. We are willing to admit that by stipulation.
Yes, ma'am, I see right here on the back of this page, my name.
I'll return that to them. Okay. It's gonna move to admit states, 328.
I don't have an objection, I'm just asking this not be published to the news media, because Ms. Layton is trying to subpoena. It's not really,
But that's fine, but she's still a witness?
Yes,
so
yes, I
we are
mean,
entitled to.
no objection to admitting it.
Okay, 328 submitted.
May I say something, please? I don't mind.
Wait.
Yes, sir.
That's
Yes,
a good
sir.
question.
Yes.
Are you on, active probation as well?
Non-report, non-supervised probation, yes, ma'am, and I'm sacrificing a lot to tell the truth, so this girl could have justice today. I'm not here for any side, I'm just here to tell the truth, sir.
But he never told you he killed Laken Riley, right?
No, he never did.
That's all I got.
Just a few follow-ups, Ms. Layton. You came forward with this information to the police, right?
I came forward to tell the truth about anything that I might know, to my knowledge is the truth, to help whoever is responsible pay for taking her life.
And you did multiple interviews with them?
Multiple.
Did you allow them to download your phone voluntarily?
Everything that I had, at all, the Abaros, and I compiled a whole GDI list of everything I wrote. They asked me anything that I could remember at all. It's not if I don't think it's important
Sure.
to write it down, and I did, and I handed it over to them.
And you also let them, kind of download your phone?
Yes.
And is it fair to say you are scared of Diego?
That night, no, I wasn't scared, because if I was scared, I would have got a protective order or called the police. But like she said, I was under the influence. So the next day is when everything hit. And when I realized what was going on, when they were slammed down in front of my apartment, that's when it sunk in and I got scared.
And are you here under court order to be here, Ms. Layton?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't have any further questions.
Anything else, Ms. Ross?
No, sir.
Okay, can she be excused, Ms. Beck?
Yes.
Any objection, Ms. Ross?
No, sir.
You're excused, ma'am, which
Thank
means
you.
you can leave. Thank you. Call your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense is calling Diego Ibarra to stand. Ms. Donnelly has a missed call from Mr. Diego's attorney, so he set me out the hallway. Yes, sir.
Okay. I need to ask the question, what do you plan to do about an interpreter, if anything?
We emailed Your Honor's chambers earlier and spoke with Ms. Smith, and what was decided is that Ms. Smith will translate, and her assistant will stand by Mr. Ibarra in case we need to speak to him, but he will be able to hear the Spanish
Okay,
conversation.
I just wasn't sure.
Yes.
¿En inglés?
No English. So, Judge, let me tell the court what's going on. So we have Diego Ibarra is here by our subpoena for the defendant.
You done?
And he is, in our understanding, in federal custody, being held in another county jail.
En otro condado.
And so the state actually had him transported to the Clark County jail.
La fiscalía lo transportó
And then at some point recently, they let us know that they were not planning to call him.
No habían calificado a mi hermano, pero sí.
We did want to call him.
Entonces, no lo queríamos.
But the problem is he's got pending sentencing in federal court, as I understand it. And he has a lawyer that I'm sure would prefer that he not be called to testify without his lawyer being present. I just got off the phone with his lawyer. I just found this out, that this person was his lawyer. So we thought he had a lawyer in Macon who I had been in touch with. And that person told us recently that they had a conflict and they were getting him new counsel and they would let us know who that was. So we hadn't heard until just a few minutes ago that it's Mr. Everhart had been appointed. And I called him, see if he could be here. He can't be here this afternoon. He's driving back to Athens, but he's about 2 hours away. And so, but he relayed, Mr. Everhart relayed to me that he would most certainly advise Mr. Ibarra to not testify, to exercise his right not to testify, since he has a sentencing pending, which makes sense. But I don't know. Bringing this to the court's attention, you know, because I would like to ask you some questions, but I don't want to.
Sure.
Obviously.
Well, let me hear from Ms. Ross. If you want to say anything, if not, I can let you hear.
Well, Judge, we had Mr. Diego transported in case either side wanted to call him. We wanted to make sure he was here so that we could continue through the trial. I have never spoken to Mr. Diego Ibarra or his attorney. As a prosecutor, I feel very uncomfortable having this witness here without his attorney present. His charges are federal charges and they are immigration charges. I understand that. They're not related to this case at all. But it's my understanding, just speaking to Mr. Donnelly, who just spoke to the witness, that the witness wants his lawyer present. I am uncomfortable as a prosecutor because we don't talk to witnesses without their lawyers present. And so I feel really kind of funny about it, if that's what you want my impression about it. So I would suggest that we let him either consult with his lawyer or get his lawyer here so that he can have him here when he testifies. And I'm really hamstrung because I'm not real sure how immigration law works in the federal system and how this might impact his sentencing. And I don't have enough knowledge of that system to know how his testimony here might impact his sentencing, but I'm sure his lawyer does, which is probably why his lawyer wants to be here.
You said Everhart. Is Eric Everhart?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I add one more just piece of information for the court? So we have another federal inmate downstairs also that we had asked the court to help us get transport orders for. The sheriff's office has brought him from an Atlanta immigration facility. He's here. And so what we're trying to elicit are some statements that and I'll just make this proffer to the court, that we contend that while in custody recently.
Well, I would wait until, because he is a fact finder and solve this issue to see if we can get his lawyer here.
Okay, let me say where I am. If Eric Everhart has told you that he does not want his client to testify, period, I don't know that I'm not willing to continue the matter with that, because if he tells him, if he takes the position he's not going to allow him to testify,
I agree.
I mean, then I don't think there's no reason to delay it for that purpose.
I totally agree. And in that event, then we would ask to call our next witness and allow him to testify to statements that he heard from Mr. Diego Ibarra, since Diego Ibarra is now unavailable.
I don't think and this is where I'm hamstrung, because I've never spoken to his lawyer, so I don't really know what he means about not advising him to testify.
Well, I can't say how I would rule about that, depending on, but I sort of hear an objection coming about hearsay.
Correct.
Is what it amounts to. Until we get there, I can't tell you about that. I mean, you know.
Okay. I think we're about there.
I believe you. So
if they want to take him down, that's fine.
do you want to be heard anymore?
No, I guess other than before a final decision is made, maybe I can speak to his lawyer, who I've never spoken to, so I don't know.
Do you want to step out and see if you can talk to Mr. Everhart?
Yes, sir. I have a better idea of what we're looking at here. If I could speak to him.
I'm okay with that. If he's in the car, I guess you can get it. I mean,
May I step out to do that?
sure. adjourn for the day, pick it back up at 8:30 in the morning with the balance of the defense case, and then go forward from there. If you'll take Mr. Ibarra back downstairs, and we'll just have him back over here in the morning unless it changes. How about that?
Markets can get in, I think, confident market in a time of fashion.
We're adjourned, but if y'all stay where you are so you can take, or do you want a little time between,
Last IFB, New York. Phone hung up. On to that. Still trying to redial IFB. Stream if you guys can hear me. Still trying to redial IFB. Trying to redial IFB. Yeah. Still don't have it yet. Yeah. You have a new adapter? The new phone? Like the
America. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
For what purposes the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
Ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
There you go. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize Jeff Cole and Diana Morrison for their achievements as the 2024 honorees of the Junior Achievement Savannah Business Hall of Fame. Jeff Cole is the president of Cole Investment Company and has been actively involved in improving the Savannah community through numerous boards and charity organizations. In addition, he is founding facilitator and board chair of East Savannah United, a nonprofit that will be opening a new library and children's center next year. Diana Morrison is the founder and CEO of Ad Specialty. She built her successful business up from just the trunk of her car. Diana contributes her time to many organizations in the Savannah area and has been honored by the Savannah Chamber of Commerce twice for her accomplishments. We are proud to have leaders like Jeff and Diana in our district and wish them both the very best. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
For what purposes the lady from Oregon seek recognition? Without objection.
Systems is going to get pushed back to the tanks, clear out everything around the pad right before we light those 33 engines and take off. Just quick reminder, you're going to see fire start at the bottom. You're going to see the deflector start at about 10 seconds before launch. Lots of water to help dissipate all that heat, all that sound. And then the engine starting up in 3 different groups. And then about a second after T0, we should see liftoff. About 2.5 minutes into the flight, a little bit longer, we'll see hot staging. And that's when we're going to be listening really close on those loops to see if we're going to be bringing the booster back for a catch today. Do always want to caution, it's never a guarantee. We've done this once. We'll see if we do it again. We're only going to do it if the booster and the tower are looking really good before we attempt to bring it back here. But coming up on a minute, not tracking any holds on the board right now. So as long as we don't have any last second things, which do happen. All right, flight director just confirmed T-minus 1 minute. Key moment to look at in 10 seconds, that T-minus 40. And we flew right through that.
Flight directors go for launch.
All right, we're now T-minus 20 seconds until liftoff of Starship Flight 6. This will mark our second attempt to catch the Super Heavy booster at the launch tower, as well as
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Booster Raptor, chamber pressure nominal.
Booster and ship, avionics, power, and telemetry nominal.
All right, we're just a little over a minute
maximum
into flight.
dynamic pressure.
We're about 6 miles away, so all the sound's still hitting us here. Hearing good call outs that power telemetry nominal, that's flying straight and true. We do see all 33 Raptor engines lit up on telemetry screens. At this point, we've passed through that point of maximum aerodynamic pressure, that max Q. Now coming up in just a little over a minute from now is going to be hot staging. So we're going to see the 6 engines on the ship ignite while still attached to the booster. Just before that, we'll see all but 3 center engines on the booster shut down. And what we call MECO, it's most engines cut off instead of main engine. And so while we continue to watch it go up, a lot of our flight controllers looking at all the systems around the tower. Again, we have to send a manual command. Just about 30 seconds away from hot staging. And we heard the tower is go for catch.
Booster engine cut off.
The return flag is set for true.
Ship engine start up. Stage separation.
All right, hot staging confirmed. 6 out of 6 lit on the ship. Booster boost back going. We heard that we are go for catch. Kate, Jesse, take good the views. Hopefully I got a booster coming home real soon.
Wow, from our view here, Dan, great views of planet Earth behind that super heavy booster. Right now it is performing the boost back burn.
Phenomenal.
Good news there, telling us that the pressures inside the ship are good. That is the second stage or the upper portion of the vehicle. Follow along with the telemetry on the bottom of your screen.
Yeah, booster is currently, super heavy is currently in its boost back burn. This boost back burn.
Avionics power telemetry nominal.
This boost back burn lasts just a little bit over a minute. So we've got a little, approximately 30 seconds left.
We've had shutdown of that boost back burn. Up next will be hot stage jettison. The view from the camera on the left, or from the booster on the left-hand side of your screen, and then tracking cam there on the right-hand side of your screen. We'll see those grid fins.
Booster offshore divert.
And we can also see that the hot stage has been jettisoned.
Yes, visual confirmation of that there on your screen, which is great. Now the next
Starship is following a nominal trajectory.
The next step for booster is going into that landing burn. Again, it'll light up 13 of those engines and then pare down to 3 engines right before booster catch.
All right, now just real quick, we did hear the call out, booster offshore divert. Unfortunately, that means that we are no-go for the catch. As we said before, both the tower and the vehicle, as well as the operators on console, have been actively evaluating the commit criteria for that return to the launch tower. And unfortunately, we did not have a pass on those commit criteria. So we are no-go for tower catch.
And we did mention that we're constantly evaluating the criteria for catch. There's a lot of things that need to go well in order to line that up. Unfortunately, today we will forego booster catch today. But what you're seeing on your screen is ship currently making its way towards the Indian Ocean, still looking good so far.
Exactly. So views there of the booster on the left-hand side of your screen, views of the ship on the right-hand side of your screen. Now, we said before that it was not guaranteed that we would be able to make a tower catch today. So while we were hoping for it, like we said, it was pretty epic on attempt 1, but the safety of the teams and the public and the pad itself are paramount. So we are accepting no compromises in any of those areas.
Exactly, and we're still going to get a lot of good flight data with booster even, but especially with ship. Again, we have an additional objective today to do an in-space relight of a Raptor engine, which again will help us set us up for being able to do deorbit burns, which is
Ship chamber pressure phenomenal.
Which is important for orbital flights. And what you're seeing on your screen is a view from Super Heavy as it's making its way back down to Earth.
Yeah, once again, we are attempting an offshore landing of the Super Heavy booster. So we have seen this before, and it is still very fun to watch, watching it come down for a soft splashdown off the Gulf Coast of Texas. We can see it there re-entering. We saw earlier those grid fins. There are 4 hypersonic grid fins. Oh, we can see that the landing burn has begun on the Super Heavy booster.
And same pattern, 13 engines will light, gone down to 3, just as we expected. And what an incredible view of splashdown that we got today of Super Heavy.
Yeah, I'm sure the buoy cam views will be pretty awesome once again. So we'd like to confirm a water landing once again for the Super Heavy booster. Congrats to the SpaceX team for making that milestone as well. Now, ship.
All right, you're just listening in there to SpaceX describe what happened as they're not catching it via the mechanical arms, the chopsticks. But you can see now stepping out is SpaceX CEO Elon Musk talking to the president-elect Donald Trump about this launch. As you can see, the SpaceX Starship, they're flying into the atmosphere as well. Let's just listen in. Maybe we'll catch some glimpses of him as he explains it in real time to the president-elect. What happened today?
Improvements with every success. So what makes it better? Well, it's a bunch of probably here. But you can see there. That's the ship that is now going around there. So if you want to maybe get a better view,
It has been a very exciting afternoon so far.
All right, you can see them on the move. Elon Musk, the SpaceX CEO, a new part of the second Trump administration, leading them to a better vantage point as they did make this water landing. It was expected and it was a go to be caught by the mechanical arms, but ultimately it did not meet the criteria. Some of the things in place weren't adequate for it to go to that landing, so they opted to do a water landing instead. Let's just continue to listen in here to see if we can hear any comments.
water landing, as everybody saw. Building is actually a little bit more, but yeah, this is down to our place. Perfect. This is just working. What's happening? There's a lot left. We're just about almost 10 minutes to flight. So about 10 plus minutes still to go. Ship nominal orbit, so it's on its way around the planet. It's going to attempt to get in space burn. We're going to lay one of those Raptor engines, the sea level ones in the middle, just to help demonstrate that we're going in that microcraft.
All right, it's a little difficult to hear, but you can see them explaining in real time what transpired there on that coast in Texas, in Boca Chica, Texas, near Brownsville, Texas, if you're familiar. As SpaceX, the sixth launch, as we're following it very, very closely. Of course, the Starship did not land in the mechanical arms. It was instead a water landing, a safe one, and you saw it, and it was very impressive to see, especially going smoke and fire, just this massive rocket going into the atmosphere. And what they saw, different lawmakers, different Republican senators, including Senator Ted Cruz, they're just on the right side of your screen asking some questions of Elon Musk about what's going on there during this launch in this town there in southern Texas. All right, let's just continue on here on Live Now from Fox. I do want to take you back out, so we'll keep our eyes on this shot, but let's take you back out to the broadcast in full and get some more glimpse into what was going on with this in this SpaceX broadcast. Let's listen in.
Splashing down in the Gulf of Mexico today, but that is exactly why we test. As is standard for these tests, the area around the pad and along the flight path was cleared prior to launch, and we expect the road and beach to remain closed until further notice.
Yeah, testing development flight hardware in a flight environment is what enables our teams to quickly learn and execute design changes and hardware upgrades to improve the probability of success in the future. Please do not attempt to approach the booster in the water for your safety as well as for that of our team that will be working on recovery. Now, we are going to continue, though. The mission is not done.
Exactly. The mission's not over. Ship is still coasting, but it has been nonstop since liftoff. And with the booster having completed its job for the day, we are going to take a short break for the next 35 minutes or so while ship continues to coast before reentry.
All right, you're just listening in as they're going to go away from this broadcast a little bit, but it was a very impressive sight to see it go smoke and fire, this massive 400-foot tall Starship system, a very powerful rocket to say the least, as you can also see this live picture there as President-elect Trump attending it alongside SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, different lawmakers as well, new parts of the second Trump administration on hand for this. So you can see Trump maybe departing this, but he was greeted by Elon Musk, and he talked about the catch significantly during the campaign stretch, the final stretch of this campaign over the course of many months, talking about the catch by these mechanical arms, and just impressive to see as, of course, a powerful launch vehicle ever built, the largest, most powerful. SpaceX attempted to try this maneuver involving steering the booster back to be caught by these mechanical arms. Unfortunately, it did not meet the criteria, was not safe enough to equate to that, so it made a safe water landing, but you saw it in real time. It was T-minus, and it was perfect in terms of the exact moment it was going for liftoff. So it went right at the exact time, right at 5 o'clock Eastern. But as it was going, the parameters were not met. So it did not go up, did not come down, did not be caught by that chopstick, those mechanical arms on this place, on this coast in Boca Chica, Texas. Let's go. As we go to break, we'll have more Trump news coming up after it. But let's take you out back to this moment as this Starship SpaceX system going smoke and fire, the 6th test flight, a very successful one despite the fact that it did not get caught. Let's listen into this briefly here as we go to break.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Booster Raptor, chamber pressure nominal.
Booster and ship, avionics, power, and telemetry nominal.
All right, we're just a little over a minute
maximum
into flight.
dynamic pressure.
We're about 6 miles away, so all the sound's still hitting us here. Hearing good call outs at power telemetry nominal. That's flying straight and true. We do see all 33 Raptor engines lit up on telemetry screens. At this point, we've passed through that point of maximum aerodynamic pressure, that max Q. Now, coming up in just a little over a minute from now is going to be hot staging. So we're going to see the 6 engines on the ship ignite while still attached to the booster. Just before that, we'll see all but 3 center engines on the booster shut down.
All right, you're just listening in. This is a little bit of a replay of what happened with this SpaceX launch there in Texas alongside Elon Musk. A very exciting one. But of course, as we were saying, that was a replay a little bit ago. Did not get caught by the mechanical arms. I do want to put up just this post as well. As you can see there, Starship's Raptor burn complete. A Starship has entered a coast phase, so it did not get caught, did not return. We're also getting this image inside, maybe there, of headquarters at this SpaceX facility of President-elect Trump, talking alongside Elon Musk. Of course, he will be in the new administration. Let's listen in because you're not going to hear any wind now because they're inside. But let's listen in if we can hear any of these comments.
Definitely the fastest way to get from anywhere. One day this might actually be, it might actually be viable to carry passengers on long distance flights. If you could get from here to Sydney in an hour.
Do you have any space monkeys around there? Yeah. Space monkeys?
Space,
Space monkeys.
Oh, okay. I thought you said spice monkey.
Sorry, Texas.
No, we no.
I volunteer.
Yeah. No space monkeys. We'll make sure it works with cargo, and then we'll add people. So, is it? Can we do the? Yeah. Should we go do the tour, or they're going to tell me? Yeah, you're good to look at the factory. Yes, sir. All right, so we can go look at the factory and then come back and see the ship landings. Right. Great. That's kind of cool. It's just weird wearing a jacket on this weather, I guess.
All right, didn't look like anyone really asked him a question. Not sure how much media there is right there, but the press pool getting a glimpse of Trump walking in there to this main headquarters building as they watched this launch. Of course, they were probably the team ultimately to make the call that no catch on this as the SpaceX Starship system went smoke and fire just a little bit ago. You can see Bryson DeChambeau there as well. So plenty of different lawmakers and other people within the soon-to-be second Trump administration. All right, let's continue to follow that very closely here on Live Now from Fox. We're going to be talking about Trump coming up after the break, but not in terms of SpaceX, in terms of this hush money trial in New York City. New developments in that and what it means for the president-elect. I'm Andy Mack. We're back after this. All right, welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. Let's talk more about now President-elect Donald Trump and what the election means for the criminal cases, as we learned new developments out of New York City today as the Manhattan DA, they opposed the dismissal of this hush money conviction, but they are open to delaying the sentencing. I do want to put up a post from Time saying New York prosecutors, they oppose any effort to dismiss the President-elect Donald Trump's hush money conviction, but they expressed some openness on Tuesday to delaying sentencing until after the impending second term. That's in the court filing as the Manhattan District Attorney's Office says Trump's forthcoming presidency isn't grounds for dropping a case that was already tried. So let's learn more about this and what it means for Trump moving forward. I want to be joined right now by attorney, friend of the program, Jeremy Rosenthal. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And of course, they are opposing a dismissal, but soon could Trump not be a convicted felon anymore?
What they want to do is kind of on sort of the extraordinary side. What they want to do here is they want to delay the sentencing indefinitely, which, think about it like this. A criminal trial is what is called bifurcated. That means that there are two parts. The first part is the guilt innocence phase. And then once the guilt innocence phase is over, we go into a punishment phase if it's a guilty verdict. And the judge sentences the defendant. It's usually very automatic. One is right after the other. Usually these things happen on the same day or the same week or the same month. But I don't believe there's any law that says you can't kick the can for 4 or 5 years down the road. That's what the prosecutors in New York want to do. Donald Trump team's almost certainly going to want to oppose that.
All right, very, very interesting. All right, Jeremy, as we're continuing to discuss this, you mentioned the kicking the can down the road, so to speak. And what is the likelihood that we revisit this in 4 years' time? Is that a real possibility?
It's a real possibility. I think the things that are at the judge's disposal right now, number one, he could toss this case entirely. I don't think that's going to happen. The second thing is he could reverse the conviction, grant Donald Trump a new trial, in which case you wouldn't think that that would happen until after he left the White House. The third thing he could do is sentence him now, probably or potentially put him on some kind of probation while he's the president. Or this is the fourth option, just revisit the whole thing when it's done. The issue is that Donald Trump's team is going to want to have intermediate appeal in that time.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's kind of interesting because as we talked about throughout this process, through the trial, the conviction, the unprecedented nature of it. And I do want to ask you, because several other of the legal minds that we bring on here, Nima Rahmani posted on social media that in New York, it's different, that a conviction is not final until a defendant has been sentenced. If your understanding of that, what do you make of that? And how does it differentiate between states, and how is New York unique?
Okay, this is actually a very technical point, but a correct point. What happens is you are not a convicted felon based on what venue you're in or what jurisdiction you're in, sometimes until your appeal comes back. That's the way it is in Texas, or obviously as stated in New York State. It's a bit of a technical differentiation, though, because think of it like this. A lot of times it's important to define somebody as a convicted felon or not of a convicted felon for the purposes of what's called enhancement. You heard of 3 strikes and you're out.
Yep.
So in other words, if a defendant has been to the penitentiary once, gets out, and gets charged again, then it's important whether or not they are finally convicted. Otherwise, it's sort of a meaningless distinction, but technically I think she.
All right, very good, Jeremy. And I do want to ask you, because we talk about this case, and of course, as I led into it, as prosecutors, they are not open. They don't want the dismissal of this case, but they're opening to a delay. That feels like a gray area. Does that hurt them in any way with the judge?
It's absolutely a gray area. I don't know that it hurts them with Judge Merchan. I think Judge Merchan is probably going to be all for this, because I don't think Judge Merchan wants to disrupt Donald Trump's second presidency. The courts of appeal, the higher up courts in New York, they may have an issue with it. And Donald Trump could certainly appeal that and say, wait, hold on. You can't keep me in limbo land like this for 4 years, 5 years. That violates my due process, whether I'm the president of the United States or not. The issue is whether Donald Trump is going to be able to move to higher courts to appeal this in the next 4 or 5 years. That's going to be the major issue, because what Donald Trump wants to do is he wants the higher courts to revisit this conviction in light of the immunity opinion that was issued this summer, namely a lot of the testimony that came about from when he was in the Oval Office. That's what the Supreme Court over the summer came back and said, you can't consider those things.
All right. So
does it infect and ruin the entire conviction? That's the issue. Sorry,
right,
Andy.
No, you're good. You're good. Continue on, because they're so very interesting that we talk about this. And we're talking about it in real time in fluid motion, and we're just kind of trying to react to what's happening. And I do ask you, because we're talking about not dismissal. Merchan's going to make a decision in the coming weeks, but we know inauguration is not that far off. We have the holidays in the way. If this gets a decision not made next week, as it gets closer to inauguration, how much up against a wall is the legal system, is Merchan in this case?
I think you're exactly right. I mean, time is running out, and at some point, there's going to have to be a decision that's made. Today was the deadline that he gave the prosecution to tell them what they wanted to do. They've done that. Now it's the ball's back in the judge's court. And again, he's got those 4 options. He can reverse this case, throw it out entirely. I don't see a whole lot of legal reason for that. If he's going to do anything to disrupt this verdict, he could grant Donald Trump a new trial, basically saying, listen, you're right. In light of the new Supreme Court ruling, the jury should not have heard those things about the Oval Office. Now, in Judge Merchan's defense, these rulings came after the trial, so he didn't know that. But that could be grounds for a new trial to roll the thing back and to do it again. Or, like we were talking about before, he could put Donald Trump on probation now, make him take anger management while he's in the White House. We could see how that goes, right? Or if everybody just agrees, look, we'll just revisit this thing in 2029. And Donald Trump's team's made it clear they don't like that. But that could certainly be a bit of a loophole that the judge sort of jumps through here. The law doesn't say, when we have that bifurcated trial, the law doesn't say necessarily that you got to sentence him the next day. or the next week or the next month or the next year or apparently the next 5 years. So we are sort of operating in this void.
Yeah, and can I ask you before I let you go, one other possibility, because we were also talking to Nima Rahmani about this, and we all talked in different legal minds, said it was unlikely that Trump would find himself behind bars, any jail time for this conviction, but there might be a fine, probation, different things. Could Mershon still sentence him, maybe something like a fine? Is that possible happening next week or the week after, sometime before the inauguration?
Potentially, yes, but I also agree that it's unlikely. Again, as far as confinement goes, the district attorney's office, Alvin Bragg's office, has been very clear that they do not want to stand in the way of Donald Trump's presidency. You've got a district judge in New York whose job it is to run a courtroom, right? Get people to lunch and the jurors to lunch on time, to make sure that people who are robbing liquor stores are doing their community service. And now he has the ability legally to jail the leader of the free world. So this is certainly very unique. But again, nothing to indicate that these types of things could happen. I have to tell clients, look, you could go to prison for the rest of your life. Then again, I could get hit by a bus when I leave here in a few minutes. There's things that are possible and things that are unlikely. I think it's highly, highly unlikely that something like that happens.
Yeah, what is possible, necessarily not probable. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what is ruled on in this case. But like you said, so much unique, so much unprecedented about this. Jeremy Rosenthal, it's great to talk with you after quite some time. We appreciate it.
Take care, Andy.
All right, thank you so much. All right, let's continue here on Live Now from Fox. Great, interesting conversation, a live look there right now as we're continuing on throughout the day in our nation's capital in Washington, D.C. We're following the latest top headlines. We'll take you out to New York for more on this Trump hush money case and what it means moving forward. We're back after this. All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andy Mack. Thank you so much for joining us. We're just talking about that Trump hush money case in New York City. A live look right now there in the heart of Manhattan as we're just past 5:30 on the East Coast. All right, thank you so much for joining us. Let's take you right now out to our nation's capital from earlier on today. This is a live picture, of course, as the kind of Capitol lit up in a big way. Let's hear from a different House GOP members, including Speaker Johnson from earlier this afternoon.
Friend and colleague on the Ways and Means Committee, Claudia Tenney from New York. She is pushing the Stop the Terror Financing and Tax Penalty on American Hostages Act. And we'll put that on the floor this week. This is a common sense piece of legislation that will prevent the IRS from charging late fees and penalties on American citizens who are wrongfully detained or held hostage abroad. Again, a common sense piece of legislation. This bill also revokes the tax-exempt status of American nonprofits that provide financial or material support to terrorist groups like Hamas. This bill addresses critical gaps in our tax laws to hold organizations and support terrorism accountable and provide relief for hostages who are just trying to get home and reunite with their families. Second bill we're also bringing to the floor, Congressman Russ Fulcher's Committing Leases for Energy Access Now Act, the CLEAN Act, which will require the Department of Interior to increase the frequency of geothermal lease sales from every 2 years to every year, hold replacement sales if necessary, and create decision deadlines for permit applications for better transparency and communication. We know that diverse and reliable energy sources are critical to our national security and American energy dominance, and geothermal energy provides clean baseload power that utilizes the resources that we have here in the United States. Again, two common sense pieces of legislation that I'm sure you all are chomping at the bit to talk about extensively today in this press conference. Looking forward to supporting both these measures, and I will now turn the time over to our whip, Mr. Tom Emmer.
Thank you, Blake. 18 minutes. This is how long Laken Riley fought for her life until she was ultimately murdered because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the Democrats' open border agenda. Police found Laken with her skull bashed in by a rock and her body exposed. Yesterday, we learned that Democrats' failed policies resulted in Laken's alleged killer receiving a taxpayer-funded flight from New York City to Georgia. This is a slap in the face to the entire Riley family, a slap in the face to every law-abiding, tax-paying American citizen. And it confirms what we've known all along. Laken Riley's murder was entirely preventable, and the Biden-Harris administration is responsible. Unfortunately, her story is not an isolated one. There's 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungary. There's 37-year-old Rachel Morin, and these are just the cases we know about. All of these young women were brutally murdered because the White House prioritized illegal immigrants over their safety. Thankfully, on November 5th, voters said enough is enough. They elected a Republican president, a Republican House, and a Republican Senate with a mandate to get this crisis under control and end the Democrats' open borders insanity once and for all. And that's exactly what we're going to do. With President Trump leading the way, our Republican trifecta is ready to hit the ground running on day one to secure our borders and ensure criminal illegal aliens are removed from our communities. January 20th cannot come fast enough. And now our Majority Leader, Steve Scalise.
Thank you, Whip. Blake laid out the bills that we're bringing to the floor again this week. Yesterday, we passed a really important bill for our nation's veterans by Juan Ciscomani, named after Elizabeth Dole. It was good to get that bill passed overwhelmingly out of the House, now over to the Senate. Going to talk a little bit about the planning that we're doing for January. You know, we just got an overwhelming mandate from the voters of this country to, number one, reject the far left policies that we've seen from the Biden-Harris administration the last 4 years, but especially to put the country on a different path. And we laid out during the campaign what that path would be, but we're now planning for the policies that we would put in place as a Republican majority with a Republican Senate and the White House and under President Trump to get our country back on track, to focus on lowering costs for family at the grocery store, at the gas pump, their energy bills, to secure America's border. So once again, I assembled all the committee chairs last week to go through what we will be doing in budget reconciliation starting in January. This is going to be a busy process next year. We laid out a very aggressive first 100-day agenda, addressing the things that would get our country moving again, that would focus on lowering costs and getting our economy moving, making sure there is no tax hike next year. You know, if Congress takes no action, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act under President Trump, many of those provisions from 2017 would expire, leading to a large tax hike on families. We are going to work to prevent that from happening. So ultimately, if you look at what we're focused on right now, is being ready day one, starting in January, when we get not only that mandate, but that opportunity to get this country back on track with unified government in Washington to start addressing the problems that were created by President Biden and Vice President Harris. We are ready for that moment. We're already making plans, working with President Trump to get our country moving again quickly so that families can finally get relief, the relief that they not only deserve, but the relief that they voted for just a few weeks ago. And so leading that charge while he's not hanging out with Kid Rock at UFC fights and Jelly Roll is our Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson.
Thanks a lot. Good morning to everybody. Glad to see such a full crowd. Every seat taken, almost standing room only in here. It is almost like a UFC fight, Madison Square Garden, almost as fun. All seriousness, we had a great weekend at Mar-a-Lago with President-elect Trump, talking about the legislative plan, talking about the agenda going forward, lots of substantive discussions. I met with President Trump and President-elect Trump and Vice President-elect J.D. Vance and their senior policy leaders. And there's no daylight between their agenda and what they envision and what we envision for the House. And in order to accomplish all of that, the president needs an aggressive cabinet, and he has put forward some extraordinary nominees. I've met with many of them individually since those announcements have been made, and we're excited about the days ahead. House Republicans are committed to working with President Trump and his nominees and the administration as we prepare for what will be a breakneck 119th Congress. The agenda will be fast-paced. The first 100 days will be very full, as we have a lot to fix. And as I've said many times, I believe President Trump could be the most consequential president of the modern era because we have to fix everything. And by extension, Congress can be as well. And the incoming administration is going to be filled with great men and women. And we trust and hope that Senate Republicans will, and the whole Senate will perform their constitutional responsibility to advise and consent on President Trump's nominees, and to do that in a speedy, expeditious manner. And as I said, we've been working with the Senate as well on this big plan we have to hit the ground running in January. We laid out this morning for the House Republicans what Leader Scalise was referring to, and that is kind of the overarching points, the overarching pieces of the reconciliation package. And in quick summary, we want to grow our economy and defeat inflation. We want to restore the border. We want to restore America's energy dominance, provide educational freedom, and dismantle the deep state. Now, lots of course, details on each of those categories, but we're working all that out together in a bicameral fashion with Senate Republicans, House Republicans working together, and of course, coordinating with the new Trump administration. In the meantime, we have some items we have to go through for the remainder of this year, as you all know. We have a disaster relief package that's been presented by the Biden administration, their request. And even before, I want to point out, even before Hurricanes Milton and Helene hit shore, House Republicans ensured that appropriate emergency funds would be provided to FEMA, as we did in that last funding package, as you know. And now that we're back in session, we're going to continue to provide for the American people with the resources that are desperately needed. So I saw firsthand, I went to the sites of the devastation. I went to Florida where Helene made landfall and looked at the devastation there, all the way inland, even to the agricultural areas. And then I spent a lot of time in Western North Carolina, where it looks like a bomb went off in most of those areas there. So these communities can be rebuilt responsibly, and Congress has a role to play. We'll be looking at all that. On the floor this week, you heard a quick summary about some of these steps we're taking towards beginning to restore America's energy dominance. And tomorrow we'll pass the Clean Act to increase our domestic power production and strengthen America's energy security. We're going to pursue an all of the above energy policy, and geothermal is a big part of that. It's just beneath our feet, and in the Mountain West states, this is a big thing. We're not going to waste it like the Biden administration did. We're going to use all the precious resources that we've been blessed as a nation to have. We'll also vote on the Stop Terror Financing and Tax Penalties on American Hostages Act this week. Common sense legislation, as you heard. It prevents the IRS from charging late fees on Americans who are held hostage or wrongfully detained abroad. This is an obvious thing that everybody should be in support of. We're going to make sure that we follow common sense legislation and these principles along the way, and House Republicans will fix that error this week and many, many errors in the days to come. So we're excited about that. I'll just say one quick note, and I'll take your questions. We just had a great gathering of all the House Republicans, as we do each week, and we had many of our member-elects, new members who will be coming in, Republican members in the 119th Congress. It's an extraordinary group. They've been on the Hill for the last week or so, having their orientation. I'm really proud of this group. They have an extraordinary set of skills and expertise they bring to the table and life experiences. Pound for pound, I think it's one of the strongest classes maybe that's ever come in for our party, and I'm really excited about what they'll contribute. And I told them and all of our members this morning as we approach Thanksgiving, it's an appropriate time for all of us to be thankful, not just for the immediate blessings of our family and friends and the things we enjoy, but for this great country and the fact that I believe that we've been given the great blessing of an opportunity to save America. And that's what we intend to do. And we have a very deliberate agenda to pursue to make sure that happens. So we're looking forward to getting to work. Yes, sir.
Is freshman-elect Sarah McBride a man or a woman?
Look, I'm not going to get into this. We welcome all new members with open arms who are duly elected representatives of the people. I believe it's a command that we treat all persons with dignity and respect, and we will. And I'm not going to engage in silly debates about this. There's a concern about the uses of restroom facilities and locker rooms and all that. This is an issue that Congress has never had to address before, and we're going to do that in deliberate fashion with member consensus on it, and we will accommodate the needs of every single person. That's all I'm going to say about that. Yes, sir.
Do you plan on bringing Nancy Mace's transgender bill and putting that into the rules package?
I'm not going to address the plans on any of that. I just told you what I'm going to say about the issue. I'm not going to engage in this. We don't look down upon anyone. We treat everybody with dignity and respect. That's a principle that I pursued my whole life, and we will take care of this, issue of first impression for Congress, as we will any other thing. We'll provide appropriate accommodation for every member of Congress.
Mr. Speaker, I want to ask you, so you've repeatedly said that one way you want to try to invigorate the U.S. economy is through confronting China. So broadly, how do you envision confronting China economically? And do you support specifically a bill like Congressman John Molinar's that was introduced last week that would strip China of the preferred nation status?
Yeah, look, I think we have to be very aggressive on China, and I won't address specific measures, but we had a select committee on the Chinese Communist Party and the extraordinary threat that they are, not just to America, but to freedom around the world. I think it's a very, very serious issue. I mean, next to the national debt, I think it's our greatest threat to national security, and we have to address it appropriately. I expect that President Trump will be very aggressive on that matter. You've heard him talk about it for quite some time, and in fact, he started talking about that in 2015 before anyone else ever really was paying attention.
All right, you're just listening in there. Speaker Mike Johnson and other GOP lawmakers discussing the latest on Capitol Hill. And President-elect Donald Trump was not in Washington, D.C. today. That's because he was down in Boca Chica, Texas, to watch the launch of a SpaceX Starship rocket. You can see this live picture there of the facility. We're going to take you out there coming up after the break and hear more about this launch on Live Now. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. It was a successful launch for SpaceX, but unfortunately, there was no catch, no mechanical arms to bring it down just based on some of the parameters. But this was the image of Donald Trump, the president-elect, watching this go smoke and fire to the heavens there as this nearly 400-foot rocket lifted off from the pad there in Boca Chica, Texas. So a very exciting launch. And let's be joined there on the ground. Spotty cell phone service, but an exciting launch by Fox's Sarah Allegre. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. What can you tell us about the launch and what did you see from your perspective?
Well, it was just all so incredible. I've never really been this close as we can get. And it's spotty just because there are so many people here. It's packed. They have their phones out. They're sending all of these videos and just goes to show you the spectacular nature of it all. And we had folks from near and far who came here to see this moment. Here's a look at what they saw. Yeah, that was the moment. Starship launched into space on a quick test flight. It's called the world's most powerful launch vehicle, and this was its sixth test. And for the second time, SpaceX was trying to use its chopstick arms. But besides that, we mentioned President-elect Trump. He was there to see it. He joined Elon Musk, who's stepping into his new role, leading the Department of Government Efficiency. And now Trump won the Rio Grande Valley where it's taking place. And we talked to folks near and far about what this meant to them. I saw one lady, she visited all the way from Canada to see this moment, and still so spectacular, just watching the rocket launch up into space. Just really such a beautiful sight. And we had a lot of locals here. One was here for the last launch, but here a second time. It's because of how wonderful it was to see with his own eyes, and really says this is a family event. This is great for the Rio Grande Valley. He talked about what this means for the economy as well. So a lot of people gathering here, whether it's successful, whether it's not, it's just still a sight to behold, and all place in the matter of 10 minutes. It's very quick. So it was really interesting to see all of the crowd surrounding here just stop, take a look, take a moment, and just stare up into the sky to watch what's is really emulating and indicating the future of space exploration. Andy Mack, back to you.
That is so very cool. And Sarah, as we're continuing to watch some of these videos there of this launch, I do want to ask you, because we know we talked about the launch and just the spectacular nature of it, but I want to ask you, how did you see it? Because we don't know. We're watching the SpaceX broadcast here, and you kind of hear them saying it's a go for recatch, but then it's a no-go. When your perspective, do you realize that in real time? How are the information getting to the people there watching on the coast?
Yeah, that's a great question. We were kind of all just watching from the get-go, looking at the launch go successfully into space, and suddenly you start to kind of no longer see it at all. So we were all kind of curious. You had some people just questions as to what exactly is going on. Is this working out? Is it not? But to be honest, I really couldn't tell. Just being here with all the folks around me, it was still pretty incredible, and people didn't really seem to care. We just learned actually later, just checking Twitter and checking X, I should say. So that was kind of how we got the source of information. But overall, for us here on the ground, watching it from the naked eye,
all right, very good, Sarah Allegre. We appreciate your time. Very spectacular. A little jealous that you got to see it in person, but thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, let's continue on, because that was a spectacular sight. It unfortunately was not returning there. It was a safe water landing, but not caught by those mechanical arms as we saw in recent months, as Trump has touted that, talked about it on the campaign trail quite a bit. And I do want to put up this post as well on social media from SpaceX, talking about this Starship successfully ignited one of its Raptor engines while in space for the first time. So plenty to learn. That's why they do some of these test flights. This the sixth iteration of it. So they're learning more every time they do it. Trump there on hand for this. And of course, I do want to put up just more of these images, because we did see Trump there talking with Elon Musk immediately after this launch. And he is explaining maybe in real time what was seen, what the SpaceX CEO was talking about, what those parameters were, and why they weren't able to catch it today, unfortunately, in southern Texas near Brownsville. But this was an image we're seeing just about an hour or so ago, less than an hour now, as liftoff happened right at 5 o'clock Eastern. All right, I'm Andy Mack. You're on Live Now from Fox. Let's slide away for another quick 2-minute break. All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andy Mack. Thank you so much for joining us just about 6 o'clock on the East Coast as we continue to give you a roundup of some of the top headlines, including what was going on in southern Texas there as this SpaceX Starship launch. It did launch successfully, but unfortunately was not caught. We did take you out there in full for the better part of the last hour. The live picture right there in our nation's capital as we're continuing to follow the top headlines from around the country as we're hearing from GOP lawmakers, including Speaker Mike Johnson. We're also learning today that Hakeem Jeffries wins a re-election bid as that House Democratic leader. Let's take you out to this press conference from earlier here on Live Now.
Privilege to have the opportunity to continue to serve in the position as House Democratic leader and to work with this extraordinary group of public servants who the caucus has entrusted to make sure that in the next Congress, we can continue the fight for everyday Americans and push back against any effort at extremism that we see from the House Republican Conference or from the incoming administration. Now, we have made clear repeatedly as House Democrats, we are prepared to work with the incoming administration to find bipartisan common ground on any issue, whenever and wherever possible, in order to make life better for hardworking American families and taxpayers and to solve problems on behalf of the American people. That's our job. And we look forward to working hard on the issues that the American people have made clear coming out of this election matter to them, like lowering the high cost of living. We are prepared to work hard to find bipartisan common ground with our Republican colleagues and the incoming administration on any issue, whenever and wherever possible. But at the same period of time, we will push back against far-right extremism whenever necessary. We will protect the things that the American people have made clear matter to them. Protect Social Security, protect Medicare, protect the Affordable Care Act, protect the progress that has been made in the context of the climate crisis, protect our veterans, and protect the woman's freedom to make her own reproductive health care decisions. We look forward to the 119th Congress. There's a lot of work ahead to be done. As House Democrats, we will continue to do everything we can, each and every day, each and every week, each and every month, to make life more affordable for the American people, to address the fact decisively that far too many Americans are struggling to live paycheck to paycheck, struggling to get by, and struggling to get ahead. And we're hopeful that the incoming administration is prepared to join us in that effort to truly make the American dream available and accessible to everyone. It's now my honor to yield to my good friend, my classmate, my colleague, and amazing leader in the House Democratic Caucus, Democratic Whip, Catherine Clark.
Thank you so much, Mr. Leader. I am profoundly grateful for the trust and confidence of my colleagues, and especially grateful to get to work with this leadership team led by Hakeem Jeffries, who continues to pull our caucus together and to lead with the American people at the center of everything he does. We are so grateful to you, Mr. Leader, for all your partnership and the values and inspiration that you bring to our caucus. House Democrats, we stand united in a single mission, building an America where every single person has a fair shot, no matter what district we represent, blue, purple, red. We see that the cost of living is pushing the American dream out of reach for so many. Families that I heard from traveling across the country talked about the high cost of rent is not only difficult to meet, but puts home ownership out of reach. Parents who are going into debt simply trying to pay for childcare. Seniors who are watching their hard-earned retirements slip out of their hands. It shouldn't be so darn hard to get by in our country. House Democrats stand ready to enact solutions to meet these challenges. We will continue, as the leader set forth, to look for opportunities to work across the aisle. We will work with anyone of any party who is serious about creating an economy that works for working people. But if the idea is that they are going to cut Medicare and Social Security, our education system and public schools, that they are going to take food programs away from hungry children in order to give corporations an even bigger tax break, they're going to have a fight on their hands from House Democrats. It's simple and it's true. We stand with working families. We believe in building an economy that brings everyone along, not in rigging it for a few, and certainly not by scapegoating a few. We stand for what Barbara Jordan called an America as good as its promise. That's our promise to the American people, and I am so grateful to be ready to work and be led by our chairman of the Democratic Caucus, Pete Aguilar.
I want to thank Whip Clark and Leader Jeffries, Vice Chair Lou, Assistant Democratic Leader Nagoose, DPCC Chair Debbie Dingell, and the DPCC co-chairs Lori Trahan, Maxwell Frost, the newest member, and Lauren Underwood, and caucus leadership Representative Robert Garcia as well. We are clear-eyed about the challenges that lie ahead in the 119th Congress, but we are ready to fight for everyday Americans. Our focus remains tackling the affordability crisis in housing, childcare, and the grocery store. Our caucus has already led the People's House despite being in the minority, and we will do it again. We were able to govern so effectively because of our unity, and it will be that same unity that helps us prioritize the needs of working people in the face of Republican overreach. We're going to stand up to any effort that would cut Social Security, Medicare, throw people off their health insurance. And we will never stop fighting to restore women's reproductive freedom. Reasonable Republicans who want to get things done and will have to tune out the extremists in their own conference will need to work with us in order to make the House function. This is a role that we've played before, and it's a role that we are willing to work at. It is my pleasure to introduce the Vice Chair of the Democratic Caucus, Ted Lieu.
Hello, it is such an honor to work with our entire caucus, and their energy and enthusiasm and experiences they bring really provide a lot of support for our entire leadership team. And it's a privilege to be able to work with Leader Jeffries, Rep. Clark, Chair Aguilar, and our entire team. We're doing listening sessions, and we're going to listen to our caucus members. We're going to listen to our constituents. We're going to listen to the American people, and then we're going to chart a path forward. And while we're doing that, I have two observations. The first is there are no permanent political victories. In a country as large and diverse as America, there is no party that has any mandate for any extended period of time. And I note that in 2004, George Bush had a trifecta. And you may have remembered that back then Republicans ran on an anti-gay marriage platform. 2 years later, Democrats flipped the House. 4 years later, President Obama had a trifecta. More recently, in 2016, Donald Trump came in with a trifecta. 2 years later, Democrats flipped the House. 4 years later, President Biden had a trifecta. So we're going to certainly see what the American people are saying. We're going to respond and we're going to chart a path forward. We do know one thing the American people are saying is that inflation is top of mind for many Americans. And we urge that the incoming administration not do things to make inflation worse. Tariffs are going to make inflation worse. The people that pay for tariffs are the American consumer. That is how it works. So if you increase tariffs on any product, that product will go up in price. So not only are Democrats going to listen to the American people, we urge our colleagues across the aisle to also listen to what the American people are saying. And now it's my great honor to recognize and bring up Assistant Leader Joe Neguse. Joe and I served on the DPCC under Joe's leadership and other DPCC members. We helped stem the red wave during the midterms. Joe has done an amazing job as Assistant Leader doing a host of new programs for our caucus. He's crisscrossed the country helping our caucus members. It's my honor to now bring up Assistant Leader Joe Neguse.
Well, good morning. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to our Vice Chair for that kind introduction. It's a privilege to be able to serve on this House Democratic leadership team with such a talented and focused and determined group of leaders. Of course, our Vice Chair, Chairman Aguilar, Whip Clark, and Leader Jeffries. Focused, as we always have been, on addressing the priorities of the American people, lowering costs, growing the middle class, building safer communities, undergirded by our shared values, and fighting for the priorities that matter to the people that we represent. Those of you who followed the 118th Congress closely know that it was a particularly dysfunctional one. And if past is prologue, I think the American people can expect perhaps more of the same. But they can also count on House Democrats to do what we've done over the course of this Congress, led by our incredible Democratic leader, Leader Jeffries, to stand in the breach, to deliver results for the American people, as he often says, standing against extremism whenever possible, extending the hand of partnership wherever possible, defending our fundamental freedoms each and every day of the week. That is our charge. That is our cause. And as Chairman Aguilar said, we remain clear-eyed about the work that is required of House Democrats in the coming months and in the 119th Congress. Of course, a big part and component of that work will be sharing and uplifting the stories of House Democrats who each come from different walks of life in every corner of our country with the American people. And there is no one positioned to do that better then the chairwoman of the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee, Debbie Dingell, of course, with the help of the three co-chairs. And so with that, introduce Chairwoman Debbie Dingell.
Thank you, Joe. And I want to tell everyone how great it is to be here and how proud I am to serve with Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Catherine Clark, Pete Aguilar, Ted Lieu, Joe Neguse, and my co-chairs. Lauren Underwood is the most seasoned of the co-chairs. Lori Trahan was elected earlier this year. And the latest, we can't wait, is Maxwell, who is the first Gen Z. And we've got we have a DPCC team that is here ready to support this team of people that you see behind us. Hakeem is our leader with the support of all of us. And we know we've got a lot of work to do. The job of the DPCC is to ensure that House Democrats are unified in their message and that it reaches every corner, every demographic, every place in this country. And we got to do a better job. You know, some of you have heard me talk about this before. In the aftermath of this month's election, we've got to, this caucus has got to be in a listening mode two ways. Leadership has begun a series of listening sessions with the members. DPCC will have that and institutionalize that as regular, and we got to listen to our constituents. And we as a team are going to make sure that members are going to meet their constituents where they are in those farmers markets, union halls, veteran halls, schools. I could go on because, you know, Saturdays, there are 14 events for me. We've got to ensure that the American people know that House Democrats are listening to them, that we understand their issues, and that we are the ones that are fighting for them, delivering for them, and are protecting them, that they're getting the facts. And we've got to help address the misinformation that's out there. And finally, we've got to make sure that we're reaching people on places we haven't been. So we're going to be reaching out on those podcasts, meeting with the influentials, Lauren's been trying hard to modernize all of us with the digital media. We're going to make sure every member has the tools from young to seasoned. There are no old members in this caucus. And it's really an honor. We've got a great team, and I think I'm turning it back to our leader, Hakeem Jeffries.
Well, thank you so much, Chair Dingell, and thank you to all of the extraordinary members of the incoming House Democratic leadership team. Let me also acknowledge Robert Garcia, who was just elected as caucus leadership representative, representing now a majority of the caucus who served or will serve in Congress 5 terms and under. So I congratulate you, Robert, and we look forward to working together, and certainly to Maxwell, who is the newest, youngest member of the House Democratic Caucus leadership team. People might reasonably ask the question, does he meet the constitutional age requirement? Yes, he does, barely. And we're so thankful for Maxwell and his incredible leadership and the perspective that he will bring to the House Democratic Caucus, the Congress, and of course, the country. Questions?
The Speaker said this morning he's going to accommodate all members.
All right, you're just listening in there to House Democrats, including Hakeem Jeffries, after he wins re-election as this House Democratic leader. So we're following the latest here on Live Now from Fox. For that, I do want to put up this post from him on X saying he's honored to be re-elected as the House Democratic leader for the upcoming Congress. We will never give up for the fight for the people. All right, I'm Andy Mack. We're back after this. All right, welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. In Texas, the Dallas Cowboys are 3-7 after a defeat on Monday Night Football at home, and it feels as if the sky is falling there, and it literally is. Fox's Jeff Cobb posting this, saying a dangerous moment just now inside of AT&T Stadium where a big piece of sheet metal fell from the roof. It almost hit multiple production people. That's ahead of the game yesterday against the Houston Texans. We're going to be joined just now outside of AT&T Stadium by Fox Sports' Dion England. Dion, thank you so much for joining us. What can you tell us about what happened last night and what are officials doing about it?
Hi there, Andy. Well, it was definitely a scary ordeal inside the stadium last night. Also, a relief that no one was injured. And today, the city of Arlington summarized a review of what went wrong.
After the retractable roof was opened around 4:30 and a piece of metal fell from the roof onto the field.
The pregame mishap was captured by ESPN's network cameras. The large piece of metal seen falling from the AT&T Stadium roof ahead of Monday night's game prompted this scene early Tuesday. A slew of construction company vehicles in the stadium parking lot and crew members milling about. And this, a statement from the city of Arlington summarizing a review between a city building inspector, deputy fire marshal, and the Dallas Cowboys organization. The metal was a cover that had not been properly secured on top of a cable tray, which is where low voltage electrical wires are grouped together. While the roof was open, wind blew the unsecured cover off the cable tray, which was on the catwalk near the top of the stadium. No further inspection is needed. Team owner Jerry Jones post-game remarks about the fallen piece of metal focused on wind gusts as the cause.
Wind apparently did a little damage, and then when we tried to open it up, the winds got underneath the roof at that time, and so everybody agreed that it did some damage, but if you check around, Dallas had wind gusts all afternoon.
The falling metal mishap is another notable incident for the iconic stadium. In 2011, ahead of Super Bowl 45, 6 workers were injured when sheets of ice and snow fell from the stadium roof during a historic ice storm. At the Super Bowl itself, hundreds of frustrated fans ended up with obstructed views because of issues with temporary seating that the NFL later took responsibility for. And there's the persistent debate about curtains, which resurfaced during this season when Dallas receiver CeeDee Lamb said a crucial dropped touchdown pass was due to the blinding sun through the large glass windows on the west end of the field. As for Monday night's mishap, Jones obviously feeling fortunate. No one was hurt.
It's fixable, but you just didn't have, it wasn't the situation, time or otherwise to do it tonight. And certainly there was no risk at all to anybody on the field playing once we shut the roof.
Now, again, the city of Arlington is saying that there is no further inspection necessary regarding that falling piece of metal. The team underscoring that there are no structural issues with the roof or the venue itself. They also point out there was additional work performed to further secure those lids for those cable trays. It's the very latest live from Arlington. Andy, back to you.
All right, maybe people in Dallas would have hoped that game got postponed just based on the performance. And we've seen in recent memory the Tropicana Field due to the hurricanes, the roof being ripped off there, the Metrodome notably in Minneapolis. I do want to ask you, just since we're getting your perspective on the team, they're 0-5 at home at AT&T Stadium. What's the feeling right now in Dallas around Jerry Jones, the Cowboys? Nothing seems to be going right this season.
I think you are exactly right, and you hit the nail on the head. There were a lot of empty seats in the stadium during last night's game, and I think that is pretty indicative of how the average Dallas Cowboys fan is feeling right now.
They had no playoffs this year for them. They're coming off a bunch of 12-5 seasons, 3-7 so far this year in that campaign. Dion, we appreciate your time. You're reporting here on Live Now. All right. Thank you so much. All right, let's continue on here on Live Now from Fox. Very interesting there, to say the least, at AT&T Stadium. The disappointing loss, another one, 0-5, like I said, at home. And it was a stat last night. There's the amount of time and the point disparity inside of that stadium that really bothers Cowboys fans moving forward, especially with Dak Prescott not on the field dealing with that hamstring injury on the IR. This was the post from Jeff Cobb yesterday. You can see just that piece of sheet metal that fell from the heavens, from the roof, almost hit multiple production people. So maybe it is a good thing that they secured it, because it could have been a very dangerous, a very tragic situation inside of that building on Monday Night Football with all the eyes on that stadium. I'm Andy Mack. We're back after this. All right, welcome back in here to Live Now from Fox. I am Andy Mack. Lots of questions still unanswered after FEMA's response to Hurricane Milton and Hurricane Helene, as FEMA's administrator went to Capitol Hill today to defend her agency's response to the storms in the Southeast. She told lawmakers her team did the best they could, but misinformation about their work made things tough. We're going to be joined right now on the ground in Asheville, North Carolina, by Fox's Chelsea Torres. Chelsea, thank you so much for joining us. What can you tell us about what happened today?
Andy, good evening. Some committee members were frustrated and even angry. One congressman from this area of Asheville says that FEMA was in some ways effective, but in others he felt that they took too long to respond to the disaster zones here in North Carolina.
A major concern in my district was FEMA's slow response in getting boots on the ground in some areas. For example, in one county, FEMA didn't arrive until over a week after the storm. And it wasn't until 20 days later that a disaster recovery center was opened.
Committee members also demanded answers about a FEMA worker telling her team to avoid homes with Trump signs in Florida. The administrator says there's an investigation and says this was a single incident. However, members asked what FEMA is doing to make this right.
We have first terminated that employee. We have also sent in an additional team to go to those 20 homes that we have identified as having been skipped over to ensure that they have had an opportunity to register for assistance. And we've provided refresher training to all of our staff in the field.
Now, President Biden did ask Congress to approve close to $100 billion in emergency funding to help people recover from Milton and Helene. FEMA administrator says they have enough staff, but they agree they need more of that funding. Andy?
All right, thank you so much, Chelsea. And a lot has been made and a lot of reporting about FEMA and those Trump signs. And of course, that employee was terminated. I do want to ask you, because you've been in North Carolina for quite some time covering the response, the relief efforts for Hurricane Helene. What questions do people there have for FEMA? Is something that lawmakers are asking, or do they hope other questions are asked?
Well, I can tell you that a lot of people that I've talked to, some have been really happy with the FEMA response. And then one family in particular I spoke to just the other day, and they told me they were denied. And that's what I keep hearing also from a lot of people, is that they're continuously denied. Some of them, though, some of these people say they don't blame FEMA. They understand that it's just mere paperwork and it's just the system itself. And so they feel that it's just a really bad situation, an unfortunate situation. But a lot of people right now, they're just hoping that they can get the help that they need so that way they can bounce back.
Yeah, there's so much to do. So many people impacted by those hurricanes in North Carolina and some remote regions there of that state. Chelsea Torres, I appreciate your reporting as always here on Live Now.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, thank you so much. Great reporting as always, as we were in that hearing, a significant portion of the day, hearing from Deanne Criswell and the FEMA administrator, taking questions, being grilled by lawmakers about this, testifying before Congress. So again, a live picture there in Washington, D.C. as we're detailing the latest with this. All right, as we're following the latest here on Live Now from Fox, I do want to take you right now out to New York City as we're hearing from officials, from crews, as they're battling a brush fire in that Harlem neighborhood. It started just about 3 minutes ago or so. Let's take you out to the beginning of it and hear some comments from officials on the ground there in New York City in the Big Apple.
Good evening. My name is Chief Joseph Duggan. I'm the city tour commander for the FDNY tonight. At approximately 2:23 p.m. today, the FDNY started receiving calls for a brush fire in the vicinity of Highbridge Park, just south of here, about 155 Street and Harlem River Drive. First two units arrived on scene and were confronted with an extensive brush fire, approximately 10 to 15 acres, about 10 to 15 football fields, an extremely dense brush terrain on very hilly, a hilly section of the park. With not a lot of hydrant or water sources. So it was a labor-intensive incident to get our folks and our equipment in place. They quickly identified the flanks of the fire from the Harlem River Drive up to where we are right now, and from 155 till just a little bit north of where we are. We had approximately 138 firefighters and medics on scene, and it rose to a third alarm. And right now we are currently in an under control status. We will be leaving a fire engineer throughout the night to maintain a watch to make sure it does not rekindle. Commissioner?
Good evening. I'm Mark Folk. I'm Deputy Commissioner and Chief Operating Officer for New York City Parks. First and foremost, want to thank the FDNY for their responsiveness here, not just tonight in Highbridge, but to every brush fire we've been having recently in parks. Also want to acknowledge my many parks colleagues that are here that serve in a supporting capacity to FDNY at every fire incidents we've been experiencing recently. Also want to certainly acknowledge our colleagues at NYPD and the Office of Emergency Management for their support in these instances. Obviously, parks are vital to every New Yorker, regardless of the time of day or the season of the year. Part of our collective responsibility as New Yorkers, though, is to take care and safeguard our parks. We just want to remind all New Yorkers that during this drought, there are certain requirements and restrictions, including Mayor Adams' recent ban on barbecuing and grilling, as well as open flames and open fire in parks. Also to remind everybody that smoking of any type is prohibited or illegal in parks at all times. So again, if all New Yorkers don't smoke, don't grill or barbecue, don't have open flames in parks, we will minimize the possibility of fires such as what happened here in Highbridge tonight. So again, want to thank FDNY for their responsiveness.
All right, we're going to open it up to some questions. Lucy?
Where this fire started, Mark, is that a public traffic area? Do people there walk there, pick up there? What is the usage?
The location where the fire took place, extremely hilly area. Not a lot of public tracks, not a lot of access in and out. It's currently under investigation.